today SDPI thought, in collaboration with, of course, Pakistan Center for Philanthropy, that we should have discussion over here that what can be taken forward for policymakers and what we can inform audience about it. And as you can see, topic that it's Pakistani diaspora philanthropy, patterns and motivations of giving of Pakistani diaspora in UK. We have panelist with us, Dr. Umar Khalid, who is head of research, Pakistan Center for Philanthropy. Then we have Dr. Shafkat Munir, research fellow and director policy at Sustainable Development Policy Institute. Mr. Mustafa Haider, who is additional director, welfare and services, oversees Pakistani's Foundation (OPF), and our chair will be joining us shortly, Mr. Naseemur Rahman, who is Prime Minister's focal person on Shelter Homes Project. And we will also be joined by Ms. Javeria Zafar Ahir, who is Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of Overseas Pakistani and Human Resource Development, Government of Pakistan. They will reach here shortly, my last two panelists, so we thought that keeping in view the interest of the audience, we should begin with the presentation. So I now request Dr. Umar Khalid, Head of Research, Pakistan Center for Philanthropy, to please begin with presentation.
Thank you, Mariam. As mentioned earlier, the topic of today's discussion is a recently launched study on diaspora philanthropy of Pakistanis settled in the UK. So in my presentation, I'll just be giving a brief overview of the highlights and important findings that have emerged from the study, as well as some possible policy recommendations that also have emerged from the analysis. And the study has been conducted in collaboration with the British Council. And of course, before I start with the formal presentation, I think it will be important to highlight the fact that Pakistan has the world's 7th largest diaspora living in countries outside their country of birth. And there are an estimated 8 million Pakistanis who are living in different parts of the world, in different continents like North America, Europe, Asia, Africa as well. And in case of the diaspora, we see that there is a large concentration of our population in European and countries, and especially UK. And it's estimated there are around 1.2 million Pakistanis living in the UK of Pakistani origin. So that was basically the motivation for conducting the study. And before I move on to the main highlights, I'd also like to briefly outline what the Pakistan Center for Philanthropy is, what are we doing, how do we do it. So basically, PCP was set up as a not-for-profit entity to promote philanthropic giving in Pakistan. And then there are two main, you can say, approaches through which we are facilitating this role. Our first area of focus is conducting research on issues related to philanthropic giving, and secondly, we are also involved in accrediting the non-profit sector entities for good governance, on basis of which they also get tax exemptions from FBR. So basically, PCP certification also implies sort of a seal of approval of the relevant government agencies as to the authenticity of the work being carried out by different organizations. And our research unit has over the years produced a large number of research on different dimensions of philanthropy. And I'll highlight just the three main areas that we've been usually focusing on. So firstly, there is individual philanthropy. We've examined what are the patterns and motivating factors for giving, for an average Pakistani household. And for that, we conducted a national level study in 2016, where it was estimated that Pakistanis on average give 240 billion rupees in philanthropic giving, which includes both monetary dimensions as well as in-kind support and time volunteered as well. Another dimension of our research touches upon the role of corporate philanthropy in promoting development in Pakistan. And in that area also, we conduct a regular study every year, which is called the Corporate Philanthropy Survey, in which we examine the CSR contributions of the business and corporate sector in Pakistan. And the recent report which we've done last year showed that public listed companies as well as the corporate sector in the country have contributed to the tune of 13 billion rupees in financial year 2018 in CSR related activities. And third dimension of our research is diaspora philanthropy, about which the study has been conducted. We've conducted a study earlier for US diaspora philanthropy that was way back in 2005. And from that study, we estimated that around the Pakistani settled in the USA are contributing around $1 billion in philanthropic giving under different dimensions. Of course, the findings are a bit old for that study. But this study was conducted recently in 2018, so I'll just go through the important findings. So in terms of what are the main objectives for conducting this study, basically we wanted to gain insights into the philanthropic giving practices of our diaspora in the UK. Secondly, we also wanted to assess the existing potential and motivations for giving for different social causes, both within the UK as well as within Pakistan. And before I move on to the study design and research methodology, I would also like to point out that this is a very explorative study and perhaps one of its kind which has been conducted. So the idea was more to explore important issues and just to get broad estimates on the scale, scope, and motivations of giving of diaspora community in the UK. Studies examine three dimensions of philanthropic giving in line with the global literature on philanthropy. The first dimension we've examined is the monetary giving, and that encompasses both zakat as well as non-zakat financial donations. Secondly, we've looked at in-kind assistance and support. And thirdly, time volunteer has been examined, and we've tried to monetize the hours of time volunteered by our expatriate Pakistanis to, reach a broad estimate of the overall volume. In terms of the research design, we've used a mixed study design method, which encompasses both quantitative as well as qualitative aspects. The main, you can say, the focus of the study has been a qualitative survey of around 1,000 respondents in UK, which we've basically drawn using snowballing sampling technique. And this quantitative analysis has been supplemented by a number of focus group discussions held in different cities in the UK to get more deeper insights into the different dimensions which have been quantified earlier. So in terms of the sampling approach that has been adopted, basically as data on income and demographic distribution of Pakistani diaspora in the UK was not available, so this precluded the use of a more scientific sampling technique. So as mentioned earlier, then we've resorted the use of snowballing sampling, and this effect was achieved in three main ways. The respondents known to the researchers were asked to share the link of the online survey with their different friends and family members, plus the philanthropic organizations that were known to the researchers were also asked to share the link with their relevant contacts. And thirdly, in the last round of the study, we also hired a number of enumerators to go and do door-to-door interviews of some of our community members in the UK. And the sample for the study was basically drawn from 5 cities in the UK, which are home to around 70% of the Pakistani population in the UK. This basically shows you the distribution by geographical area of our sample. And as expected, the majority of a large share of our sample is coming from London, where 27% of the respondents were residing in London. Then 16% each came from Birmingham and Bradford, 15% from Birmingham, and 10% from Glasgow, and the remaining 15% came from other smaller towns in the UK. Now this table basically shows some key demographic characteristics of our respondents. So we see that there is a greater share of females in the sample at 52%, while only 48% members were male. In terms of the age distribution of the respondents, we see that people in relatively younger ages were well represented, like people in the age group of 25 to 34 years made up 36% of the sample, followed by another 20% who were between 35 to 44 years of age. At the older age group, we see that the sample was relatively smaller, and then at the lower level, we see that 18% of the respondents were aged 18 to 24 years. And we only took data from individuals aged 18 years and above for the study. This table shows the educational distribution of our sample, and here we see that what the data basically shows is that our sample was highly educated people. We had 43% respondents with an undergraduate level degree, 33% had a master's level qualification, 5% even had doctorate level qualifications. So this was all in all a very highly educated, respondent base. And when they were asked about the time that they spent in the UK, we found out that just under a third of them, around 30%, reported that they'd been living in the UK for over 25 years. And another 11% each reported that they've been there for 15 to 20 years and 20 to 25 years. On the other end, we see that 19% of the respondents had been in the UK for 5 years or less, and this mainly included students who had come there for higher studies. This basically shows the distribution of the respondents by their income bracket. And the most noteworthy point, of course, first of all, is that a large proportion did not report any income. So this is likely to include, students, housewives, and also likely to include people who did not feel comfortable in reporting their income levels. And again, as the graph shows, a large share of the income bracket falls in the median group, where people reported earning between 25,000 to 40,000 pounds annually. And to the left and the right of this distribution, we see that there is an equal share of respondents, 24-25% each. And this level also coincides with the average UK household income of 27,500 in 2018, when the fieldwork for this study was carried out. So now I come to the main findings from the study. And first of all, we've estimated a broad envelope of volume that our philanthropic giving is contributed to by our diaspora, and this figure works out at 1.25 billion pounds annually. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the start, that this includes three main dimensions, which is monetary giving, in-kind giving, and as well as time volunteered. So as expected, monetary giving had the highest share in this amount, which amounted to around 740 million pounds. In-kind was second with around 350 million pounds. Time volunteered was relatively less at 165 million pounds, which we had estimated. And the way we had sort of constructed this number is that we basically added up the average giving by all our respondents, across the three dimensions, and multiplied it by the population, which according to the UK census of 2011 of Pakistani origin people aged 18 years and above amounted to just slightly over 700,000. So that average giving was multiplied by this to get a broad idea. Of course, the figure may not be very accurate, but we assume that the whole population would be following similar giving patterns. Within monetary giving, we see that again, when you break it down into zakat and non-zakat, we see that zakat is the predominant mode of giving financially, accounting from 72% of the giving, while non-zakat amounted to just 28%. And then in our survey, we also asked our respondents to, inform us whether they had given their philanthropic giving for Pakistan-based causes exclusively or UK-based causes or both causes. So on my right, we see the survey responses to that question. We see that 31% of our sample reported that they gave to Pakistan-based causes only. 20% reported that they gave to UK-based causes only, whereas a large share at 40% reported that they'd given both to Pakistan and UK-based causes. And only 9% of our sample respondents reported that they were not involved in any form of philanthropic giving. And when we break down the numbers in terms of the total volume of giving across Pakistan-based causes and UK-based causes, we see that roughly 51% of the amount of 1.25 billion, which I showed earlier, goes to causes based in Pakistan, which amounts to around 636 million pounds. And roughly a similar amount is channeled towards causes in UK at 616 million pounds. Now, this graph basically shows, how the forms of giving differ across UK and Pakistan by the three dimensions that we've looked at. And here we see that in case of Pakistan, relatively higher share of the respondents reported giving to in their monetary form. Another 31% reported that they had given in some kind of in-kind support or assistance, while only 13% reported to have, volunteered time to Pakistan-based causes. In the UK, the position was slightly changed, although the majority at 48% reported giving in monetary terms. But we see that a higher share at 25% reported, giving in terms of their time and time-based volunteering, while 27% gave in terms of in-kind support. So when the respondents were asked to identify the main causes or motivations that led them to, give for different causes here in Pakistan, and
Let us formally welcome Ms. Jawaria Zafar Ahib, Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of Overseas Pakistani and Human Resource Development, Government of Pakistan. Assalamualaikum. We have just started with the presentation, so I would request Umar Khalid again to please highlight some of the major findings which you were showing on first slide, and then we can probably move on to discussion and recommendation part. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start with the main findings of our study. And first of all, in terms of the volume and forms of giving, we see that we've estimated that Pakistani, diaspora community in the UK is giving on average around 1.25 billion pounds annually in different forms of philanthropic giving. And that amount includes 740 million pounds in terms of monetary donations, around 350 million pounds in terms of in-kind donations, while 165 million pounds have been estimated as the volume of time volunteered by the diaspora community. Now, when we break down the monetary giving component into zakat and non-zakat, we see that the major share of donation of monetary donation goes towards zakat-related causes at around 72%, while 28% reported giving financial aid for non-zakat purposes. When we asked our respondents as to what sort of causes that they supported in Pakistan or in UK or in both countries, we see the respondents' response on the right side, which indicates 31% indicated that they gave only to Pakistan-based causes. 20% reported that they gave to only UK-based causes, and while a large share at 40% reported giving both to Pakistan and UK-based causes. And 9% of the sample did not give any amount of philanthropic giving. And in terms of the distribution of the volume of this giving under the three dimensions to Pakistan-based and UK-based causes, the volumes that we've estimated turn out to be that 51% of total giving goes to Pakistan-based causes, and it can be estimated at around 636 million pounds. A similar amount, around 49% of the total amount of 1.25 billion pounds, is directed towards UK-based causes within UK. That amounts to 116 million pounds. Moving on, when we look at the trends in the forms of different giving across both Pakistan and UK-based causes, we see some slight differences between the two countries. For Pakistan-based causes, we see that a higher share of the giving is in the form of monetary donations at 56% of all donations coming to Pakistan-based causes. Another 31% is sent in kind, while 13% was reported as time volunteered for social causes in Pakistan. When we look at UK, the trends are slightly different, although the majority share report giving in monetary terms at 48%, but we see that a relatively higher share report giving in terms of time volunteer to social causes there, while another 27% report giving in kind. When we ask the respondents to identify their main motivations for the philanthropic giving, so we see that an overwhelming majority reported that they had given donations just to help other people in need. And this is a multiple response question, but basically around 86% responses indicated that they had given solely for this reason. Another major reason that came across for motivation was to fulfill their religious duty, and I guess that also makes sense given that a high share of giving is in the form of zakat, which is a religious obligation on non-Muslims. And then there were some other motivations as well. Some wanted to help their friends and family. Some reported that they wanted to contribute to Pakistan's development and to return something to the community they had grown up to. So these are the main highlights with respect to the motivations for giving. Another important finding that we found was through the mechanism of channeling of philanthropic giving. So within UK and Pakistan, we see very different trends. In Pakistan, most of the respondents indicated that they gave mostly to individuals. As the figures show, that 62% of Pakistan-based causes went to individuals, while around 38% went to charitable organizations. And similarly, for other forms of giving, it was similar. When we see UK, the trend is slightly different. We see that there the people are giving more to charitable organizations as opposed to individuals. And 64% of the respondents who were giving to UK-based causes reported that they'd given their donations to charitable organizations, while only 36% had reported that they had given their religious or other forms of giving to individuals. So this may also like to reflect different, you can say, the landscape of charity in the two countries. While in UK the charitable sector is quite well developed, and they have a large number of reputable organizations through which people feel comfortable channeling their donations. And perhaps in Pakistan there is this trust deficit which motivates them to give to more through individuals who they personally know. And this thing also came across in the focus group discussions that were held to sort of validate the quantitative findings. When we asked the respondents what were the main causes that they supported through their monetary giving, so we got a multiple of responses, but we see that the highest share reported giving for poverty alleviation and social development related causes. followed closely by concerns on health and education, as well as for supporting the disabled and handicapped. And there were also some other concerns which were followed by a more smaller share of the givers, which includes women empowerment, environment and climate change, as well as children and youth. This slide basically shows what were the preferences for giving through the different modes. And again, we see very differential patterns across Pakistan and UK. In case of Pakistan, we see that the majority of giving is channeled through cash. 40% of the respondents for Pakistan-based causes reported giving through cash. 24% reported that they had given through some online platform, while 23% reported using debit or credit cards to make their transactions, and 13% had directly transferred the money in the beneficiary's bank account. When we come to UK, we see that what is most striking is that the share of cash is very small in the giving, and the predominant modes are either use of online platforms or use of debit or credit card, and only 29% reported giving through cash. Now coming to the in-kind donations, the previous graphs were, highlighting the trends with respect to the monetary giving. So coming to the in-kind donations, which have been received by individuals in both Pakistan and UK-based causes, again we see slightly differential patterns. Although in both UK and Pakistan, we see that majority of the people reported giving to the sick and needy people. But in Pakistan, what is more striking is that a substantially large share of the respondents also reported giving to their close relatives at 31%, whereas friends and family, whereas this share was relatively lower in UK. And the largest contributions basically went to the needy and sick. Now, in terms of the in-kind donations which were given to organizations strictly as opposed to individuals, again here we see that in UK, the significant majority of the people reported that they had given in-kind donations to some charitable organizations. In Pakistan also, while a large share reported giving through charitable organizations, but the share of mosques, hospitals and schools was also quite significant and a bit higher than the corresponding, groups in the UK. And now coming to, my last slide for the main findings. At the end of the survey, we asked the respondents if they what were their expectation in terms of future philanthropic giving, or if they were to give again, what were their responses be. And surprisingly, 38% of our respondents said that this amount we could give significantly higher amount if there was more trust in that the contributions that we sent will be used for the right purpose. So this clearly highlights that there is a large potential for even attracting greater inflows of philanthropic giving. Another 27% also said that the donations could be significantly higher if there was more information available for worthy causes in Pakistan. And this also highlights maybe information asymmetries with respect to charitable organizations working in Pakistan and the good work they are doing. And maybe perhaps this needs to be highlighted, and more awareness needs to be generated on this account. Another 23% said that their donation could be higher if they were it was easier to give to Pakistan-based causes. And again, in the focus group discussions, when we asked them to sort of further explain what they meant by this, the issues that came across was that at times when they're transferring money to Pakistan, there are some issues with respect to the recent laws that have taken place. So that also sort of makes the whole process a bit cumbersome. So these were the main findings from the study. And now I would like to highlight a few, 3, 4 key themes which we've seen that emerge from our analysis. So basically, what we see that trust plays a very important role in determining how much the diaspora community members give. So if they have a trust on an individual or charitable organization, for that matter, they tend to give higher amounts. Another important theme is identity. An individual's identity is shown to clearly determine their giving patterns, and the individual identity can be composed of a number of determining factors, like where they are born, where they were brought up, uh, who they have married, and how often they have traveled to Pakistan and know the ground realities there. And another theme that was highlighted by the diaspora community was impact. That basically they want the diaspora community giving their charitable donations wanted to ensure that their donations had a long lasting and long term impact on their chosen cause. So they were not just giving as a stopgap arrangement. They wanted to sort of support some broader social cause. And of course, religion was an encompassing theme in all of our analysis, and a large proportion reported to be motivated by the religious factor in their giving. So now I move to some key recommendations that we arrived at on basis of our analysis. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this was basically an exploratory study. So, we also recommended that perhaps more detailed case studies of individual giving, in different areas can also be carried out, to further, get a more accurate assessment of the giving patterns. Another important recommendation that emerges for, charitable organizations working in Pakistan is that they can capitalize on faith-based giving in the UK, because that is a very big driving factor. Pushing people to give to causes in Pakistan. And in this regard, while the occasion of Ramzan is used occasionally, I mean mostly in most cases, the charitable organizations can also attract sadaqah and qurbani related donations from diaspora community members in UK. And now, with respect to the trust dimension, which came across in all our analysis, this basically highlighted or underscored the need for a strengthened regulatory regime for the charitable sector in Pakistan, so that people's trust in the charitable organizations working in Pakistan can improve, and they can perhaps channel greater amounts of donations through these organizations. And I think in this regard, there has been some developments recently also. In 3 provinces, laws have been enacted to establish, provincial level charities commissions, pretty much on the lines of the UK Charity Commission. And the charity commissions are supposed to, regulate all the charitable organizations working in different sectors, in their provinces, to ensure that they meet good standards of governance, reporting, and disclosure. And perhaps once these commissions are more functional, maybe this trust deficit issue that came across can be resolved to some extent. Another recommendation that has also emerged, that maybe further research can be carried out to explore feasibility of developing an online portal for giving, which can improve the information availability. And PCP is also working with some stakeholders in this regard to explore the possibility of such a mechanism. And lastly, some action research projects can also be undertaken again by the Pakistani based philanthropic organizations to sort of try and increase their level of engagement with the diaspora community in the UK. So with this, I'd like to end my presentation and leave the floor open for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Umar Khalid, for sharing very useful and detailed insight from the report. I think, as you mentioned, that 1.2 million Pakistani origin people based in UK contribute a lot in terms of monetary, in-kind, and time volunteer donations. Moving forward, I think it's a very important suggestion to develop an online portal of giving, and then action research projects and strengthening regularly regime for improving trust and capitalizing on faith-based giving, because those were, I think, largest donations as per your findings. I now request Dr. Shafqat Munir, who heads a policy unit at SDPI, to please comment on this report.
Thank you, Mariam. I think the report is self-explanatory. I will pick a couple of points to connect with some of my previous work and looking at the giving trends in UK and also in Pakistan. If you look at UK's culture, if you look at that, giving is important for every individual, whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims or whatever their religion or their identity is, because giving is a culture. Because in my previous work I have seen there is a regular DAC committee, disaster appeal committee, which is already in existence, and that every individual in UK, they give 10 or 15 pounds every month out of their income for these causes. They do not focus only on religious causes, but they give for social causes, for development, particularly in disaster. In disaster, because in my previous role, I have been part of the process where some of my colleagues who were sitting in UK, they were part of the DSC. So DSC work, they have a charitable amount with them, which is donated by people. And whenever any disaster hits any part of the world, so immediately DSE funds are mobilized from the existing funds, and then it is re-energized. The pool is again cooped up. So this is one way of regular giving, because this is part of the culture. And probably there is a culture, so there is a system in UK collecting charities, collecting philanthropies, and channelizing it. So they have a different ways. For example, there is a mechanism of child sponsorship in Pakistan for lot. I have worked with one organization, international UK based organization. They were working in Pakistan previously. So there was a child sponsorship system in UK. In addition to giving a necessary amount, they adopt children from across the world, whether in Africa, in third world countries. So they adopt the child for their upbringing, for their education and development. They keep track of the children's progress. So when they contribute money, they have a track record of checking, and these organizations provide them the progress these kids are doing. So this system is already working. The second I told about that, and then there is a famine flash appeal. There are a lot of system where people contribute. When there is a flash appeal from UK government or from the DC that there is an emergency in any part of the world, so the people are mobilized and they pay. And then there are charity shop system. People donate their unused item at the shops, and they are really in workable condition. They are sold and money is generated. There are many models there. So if you look at the report, which only focuses on Pakistani diaspora, and if you look at the money coming, 72% is coming from zakat. So which means it's an individual charity. It's not an organized philanthropic work, because there is a difference between individual charity and organized philanthropy, and then corporate philanthropy, and moving forward the CSR and CSR plus the social impact investment kind of things. So this mostly, if you look at this trends coming up from UK Pakistani diaspora, that talks about zakat, and that too coming 51%, with which one, the 51% which is coming to Pakistan or for the causes in Pakistan, that is mostly not through the regular channels as compared to 49% in UK. because of the system, it comes through individuals, comes for individuals. Then, lately, Pakistan has been suffering a lot of problem because of the charity coming, who is donating home. This kind of phenomena came up. And then the concept of safe charity came in. Even government of Pakistan has a, campaign, Hak Hakdar Tak. Information Ministry is running this campaign. So these kind of things are very much linked to sensitivities. It's good that the study at the end recommended online portal or online, recognition, because when somebody donates online, there is some basic data and verifications there. Who is giving for what? So these recommendations are really good for our society, for future, the charity regulation things. Now we have to move. Now coming back to Pakistan, I have recently completed some work with industry in Pakistan, uh, particularly family businesses in Karachi. There is a lot of charity coming up from the family businesses in Karachi. I have seen, even the big corporations run by these families, they do not have a regular system of corporate social responsibility mechanism or the framework. Again, that is a corporate philanthropy or philanthropy. If one person who is heading this organization, owner of any business, if they ask, they can donate. But there is no regular system which is as such CSR. So we have to think through this and see what is charity, what is philanthropy, and what is CSR. Most of the Pakistani businesses are mixing it up. They say it's CSR, it's not. Frankly, to my work, I have worked recently industry in Lahore, Multan, Islamabad, and Karachi, where all the big hubs are. To my understanding, everything comes under either individual charity or philanthropy. Or to more of it, if there are some big corporation, Pakistani corporation, family-owned businesses, they are giving corporate philanthropy. Whereas the international corporation working in Pakistan, they have regular system. I asked even biggest businesses in Pakistan who are comparable to any big industry in the world. They do not have a corporate social responsibility strategy, even any plan of spending. They say, yes, we have money, we spend on need basis. There's nothing, the strategic plan backed by the budget. If you compare it with international businesses in Pakistan, they have a regular system because they are connected to the headquarters. As Dr. Umar had just mentioned, the variable between Pakistan and UK. The same people who are giving charity, how it is dealt in Pakistan or how it is dealt in UK. So that's why we have to look at this sector, and the good that you have recommended, and government is also working on setting up commissions. We hope that with the commissions, with Provincial Charity Commission or this system, things would be regularized. Pakistani market is also not small. If look at the UK market, as you mentioned also, it's around, if we count it in rupees, 200 billion rupees. But Pakistani market is also around 500 billion rupees a year in charity. So we need really, there's a big amount. So we have to really channelize it through these channels, as Dr. Umar pointed out in the study. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shafqat Munir, for highlighting on the need of regularizing this flow of money in whatever form it is coming in Pakistan. I now request Mr. Mustafa Haider, who is Additional Director, Welfare and Services at Overseas Pakistani Foundation, for your comments about this report, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Umar Khalid for such an exhaustive study. Because this type of study, I think, because when I got the invitation, I was searching the net for this type of some material which I could gather. And the first thing that came on the screen was this study. This is very exhaustive study, and particularly this is very pertinent to OPF also, because right now we are under developing a proposal for creation of Overseas Pakistani Sport Fund. That fund basically would be OPF will give around 20 million as seed money, and then we will seek donations from overseas Pakistanis across the world, particularly from Europe and from United Kingdom. Like we have seen that in our there is a, in the thing is in our knowledge that in Saudi Arabia there are different Pakistanis who are presently in jail due to payment of some petty fines that are due on them. Through Pakistan missions, we have been able to collect sufficient funds for them for payment of their fines also. Last year, if I can give you an approximate estimate, around 10 million Saudi Riyal was collected by Pakistani community, and it was spent on transportation of dead bodies of Pakistani workers whose employers were not cooperating, and on payment of fines and in rehabilitation of some destitute families. So, apart from UK, the magnitude of this activity is present in all countries of the world. Here, I would like to also request Dr. Saib that for our Pakistan overseas Pakistani sport fund, we would like your expertise also for accreditation, and we will also would like to take help from you in developing this scheme also, because this will be a national cause, and this is over and above the community welfare and education fund that the government of Pakistan is maintaining through Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So this will be a great help for us also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa Haider, for your useful insight. Before coming to Mr. Naseemur Rahman, I would take comments from Ms. Javeria Zafar Ahir first, who is Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of Overseas Pakistani and Human Resource Development from Government of Pakistan. You have heard the conversation and discussion by the panelists and presentation from Dr. Umar Khalid. He has also given some very useful recommendations. So what do you think that should be way forward from the government side in this regard?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here in such a great event. And Dr. Umar has, I guess, your presentation was self-explanatory and very informative in a sense for our ministry, as Mr. Mustafa Haider mentioned. And well, if I talk about the recommendations which you have given, and if we work on that, I guess it will be much easier for Pakistani diaspora living in UK or any other country to donate or to transfer money, and we are also working on that. We are on it just to make transactions easy for Pakistani people living outside Pakistan. And this fund which Mustafa mentioned, they are also working on that. And there are so many Pakistani labor outside Pakistan who are suffering just because of fines which they cannot pay. And Ministry of Finance helped us every year, even approximately 782, more or less, billion rupees this year Ministry of Finance has given for such Pakistanis who are involved in petty crimes, and they are in jail, and their families are really disturbed. And about UK, I don't know much about UK, but due to your presentation, it was very informative. And not only UK, but representing the ministry, I guess these kind of recommendations, these kind of studies must be done for every country, especially where the Pakistani diaspora is in number. So I would like to congratulate you and thank you very much once again.
I think I know there would be many more questions, but we can discuss on tea break. But before closing this, I would request Chair of today's seminar, Mr. Naseemur Rahman, who is Prime Minister's focal person on Shelter Homes project, to share his insight.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I feel it's a big privilege to be invited at such a learned, knowledgeable group of people. And I'm literally humbled and I'm very thankful to SDPI for giving me this opportunity. Then I will pick up from where Javeria left and said that you have done a great study, Umar Khalid, and like she was saying, we've learned some new things and facts and figures which we can use in our work. I personally think I'm further educated for what you have done. So thank you very much. Then going to my friend Shafik.
It has just switched off. Maybe you can drag it a bit closer to you so that it shouldn't stop
अब
working.
आवाज आ रही है मतलब अगर आवाज आ रही है तो थोड़ा आहिस्ता बोलूं So, and Shafkat Munir and I sort of go many years back, you know, since the student days.
मेरे उस्ताद हैं
नहीं,
नसीम साहब.
His objective is to make me feel embarrassed of my age and everything that we try. If he had said a colleague or a friend, you know, I will be flattered. When he said a ustad, तो हम तो मर गए इनकी बात ही सुन के ना. It's a left-handed compliment he always gives, and he's a writer, journalist. He spares nobody. But I'm impressed that you are in the business in which you started, and जो ये जुनून है आपका, ये अभी तक चल रहा है, तो there must be either something wrong with the world or something wrong with you. तो वरना हम तो 1, 2, 3, 4 जॉब्स ही चेंज करते रहते हैं. But coming back to the issue of diaspora and aid and assistance and charity, this is the biggest challenge of our times. And the more we try to understand it, the better off we will be today, tomorrow and day after. When I said कि पाकिस्तान में एक तरह से तो बहुत ज़्यादा असिस्टेंस भी आती है और कभी कम भी आती है. कभी सुनते हैं अक्लो होश की और कम भी पीते हैं. कभी साकी की नज़रें देख कर पहम भी पीते हैं. So it's like that कि हमारी जो है ना वो बड़ी unstable, uncertain, and it has peaks, you know, ups and downs, and so you cannot really rely on the foreign assistance. And what you were talking about, the flash appeals, since my background is with UNICEF, and I've seen that our flash appeals for Pakistan used to get such an outpouring of assistance, but over the years it has dried up. But the reality is this: Pakistanis, wherever they are, whether they are in UK or US, and the other thing you must tell me, because she looked at me that you're running out of your time. One, I'm aging like a short distance runner. Second, you know, she looks at me, kitna time?
You have enough time. You
5
can
minutes
complete your. No. You have enough time. You can take your time.
Because हमें तो ऐसी चीज नहीं मिलती ना. I've seen the chairman exploiting, you know, abusing their position in the chair. ये आयतल कुर्सी नहीं है sir.
But you utilize your life.
Anyway,
I think the problem with our generation is that we have to use our social media alongside these events as well. So
I see.
this
Good.
has some somehow.
तो मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि
Live on.
अच्छा, it's going live. So ये है कि पाकिस्तान में जो assistance आती है, इसकी एक वजह ये भी है कि we look at, since because of my work in UNICEF, I always look at the things कि what is the Human Development Index. If in human development you are very low, then you are a strong candidate for assistance. At the same time, you are a weak candidate. It cuts both ways. For example, Pakistan is 150th in 189 countries. So we are in the bottom quartile of Human Development Index. We invest very little in human development indicators. If we will invest 2.5% of the GDP in education, who's going to trust us? Who's going to give us money? So one way is, while the studies are great and exploratory and focus groups, you have done all the things right, but we need to understand that where does the assistance go? And if I look at the countries in South Asia, because Shafkat knows I served in Bangladesh, even Bangladesh has a better human development index than us. It's like 135, and India is 128, and Sri Lanka is, I think, 75. The only country which is near us is Nepal. Even they are better than us. They are 149th.
we have the crazy distinction of being the lowest in the in South Asia, barring Afghanistan. So that qualifies us. और दूसरी बात ये है कि Pakistanis by nature we are very emotional, you know. We are less logical and more emotional. So suddenly I look at you and say, oh my God, his tie is better than mine. And then we like to ask also, we joke and we say, excuse me sir, who's paying for this? Because every time a man is wearing a suit, you got to ask who's paying for it. And so anyway, so the loud emergencies जब होती हैं तो बहुत ज़्यादा assistance आती है पाकिस्तान में. इतनी आती है कि संभाली नहीं जाती. Whether it was 2005 earthquake, whether it was 2010 floods. So emotionally we react to loud emergencies. And in 2010, I was heading Imran Khan Foundation and we did a program Pukar and we were able to raise 200 crores through a telethon in a matter of 7 or 8 days. And such a huge amount of money came from UK and US. So sometimes they give, people don't give money to people, they give money to people with causes. And also, who's asking for it and what is that person's credibility? Many a times I've donated, although I'm very crazy, we live on donations, you know, having grown up with UNICEF. When it comes to giving, I say, yeah, someone else should give. I'm making an appeal, you know, जो आपने लिखा है कि in time giving. So my life is in time giving. In cash, I think I cannot tell you what I have given. But when my daughter asked me to give for Shaukat Khanum, I do give. So medium is the message. So when somebody like Imran Khan goes out and asks for assistance, or he's known in UK to be credible, honest, and not corrupt, and ma'am is trustworthy, great. And so he has all of those things which attract the donors, but then the systems are more important than individuals. There's a time when even the appeal, the flash appeal, like in UNICEF, we used to go for children causes, they are the best causes. We are guilty of many faults, but worst fault is ignoring the children. So we have been trained how to raise money and resource mobilization and all of that. So Pakistan में जो है ना, we are not able to project the silent emergency in our country, which is Nabil, it is about emergency of illiteracy. Like I said, in education, only 2.5% of the GDP. It is emergency of health. It is emergency of women dying in the process of childbirth, you know. It's the biggest scandal of 21st century, 15,000 women dying. Maternal mortality, one of the highest. So, ये वाली जो चीज़ें हैं ना कि silent emergency की तरफ we have to come, and studies like this about who can give, but why do we qualify and what are our indicators. जैसे आप लोगों ने point out भी किया है कि where is this money going, they will always. The other thing that attracted me in the study is the focus on the young people. Because we live in a young world. In Pakistan also, you know, most of the people are young. Are the young willing to give or not give? UK precisely is the subject matter of that kind of a thing. Because the first generation of Pakistanis went to UK right after 1947, when I was not even born. That's the only way I can tell you I'm pretty young. Although I was born in 1950, so anyway, so वो जो उस ज़माने में the people went to UK, and when you go, the first generation, they have stronger ties with their own country. They have memories, they have school friends, they are familiar with the areas, and now we are on to the second or the third generation of the millennials. The second generation was still connected because of their parents, and they will give. जैसे लोग कहते हैं आप उसी मुल्क को पैसे देंगे जिसको आप जानते हैं, where you have memories and you want to go back and do something for your country. But now we are living with the third generation of UK donors, and like you said, 18% of them are in the age of 18 to 24 years. So my focus as a UNICEF person is that let's focus on the young donors, because we are looking for loyal, long-term donors. Somebody like me will only give when he dies in a legacy, but we need much more than that, because not only the money which comes with eyes and ears to see where this thing is going. So that's the other area which we need to look at and say, oh, bigger the progress. Now again, going back to where Pakistan is today and how much assistance we need and how we can mobilize that and how we can go to the corporate social responsibility. He was talking about what is the university social responsibility. We give a lot, but without any transparent system of expression where that money is going. Except in Bangladesh, they get the assistance, they use it so well. So you think that country is well worth giving. Pakistan has that image, or the study में भी आया कि identity problem, religious reasons के लिए लोग देते हैं. Even if they give to religious reasons, they give to organizations. Well, organizations are big, and organizations have to do with the work ethics, and but the morals are something else. Morals are about personal values. I can be moral and I can yet be unethical because my work ethics are so bad. So things like that, Pakistan need to look at some of those things. And when, like Javeria was talking about the leadership having done something good, but they also have to watch out. I think there was a very pertinent question which he raised about the conflict of interest. Because if somebody is in that sector, should that person be leading an organization which gives money, like International Red Crescent or National Red Crescent? These are the questions, you know. Pakistanis are not perfect at all, much less those who don't make it first. Then the parties also look for some people they can trust a little bit more than the others. But in the social sector, I agree with you that we have to find people who are credible, who don't have an identity problem, who don't have conflict of interest. But nowadays, you know, everyone has a conflict of interest. Having said that, I would like to wrap it up by saying that now, for example, we always like to, like Henry Kissinger, somebody asked him, after he finished talking, he said, "Let me have your questions for my answers. No matter what you ask, whatever you ask, I'm going to say something for myself and my organization." These days I'm working on these panagas and, you know, the homeless, the shelterless people in the 21st century. That's the Shafqat Sahib, the biggest
Sir,
burning.
how people can contribute to your work?
Yeah. So this is the burning issue of our times, and already people are doing, because under this program, the free food, which is always given, langars वगैरह तो Pakistan में, we are not doing anything new, but there are ways of, you know, having new lights and giving in a new way. I have asked some of the people who are in the langar homes कि आपको तो ये पाकिस्तान में तो 700 साल से चल रही है, ये इंडिया में कदीम मर्दान लंगर, इमाम बारी पे चले जाएं, वहाँ पे लंगर चलता ही रहता है, गोलरा में चले जाएं, दाता साहब में चले जाएं, अजमेर शरीफ में मैं गया हूँ तो वहाँ पे सरदार जी भी आके जो है ना वो दे रहे थे. And giving, like you said, you know, it's a culture. And so that kind of a system. तो मैंने उन्हें कहा कि फ़र्क क्या पड़ा जो हम ये लंगर या पनाह गाहें चला रहे हैं. उसने कहा कि first, you know, the things were thrown at us. When you give food, और हम सड़क के किनारे बैठ के खा रहे हैं, and then गाड़ियाँ जा रही हैं, आ रही हैं, धूल उड़ रही है, so we feel very belittled and humiliated. Like Gandhi has said that service that is rendered without joy pleases neither the one who gives it nor the one who receives it. If I do it like this, come on, take it, you know. The people are throwing food and they are picking it up like hungry animals. So this is restoring their sense of dignity, that even if you are needy and they are coming in search of jobs and they are in the city, एक चारपाई 80 रुपए की मिलती है सब्जी मंडी में. 80 रुपए की तो उसने एक चारपाई ली without a चादर and a तकिया. And then 100 रुपए का खाना खाया कम से कम. 200 रुपए तो उसी में चल गए. 600 रुपए की दिहाड़ी मिली. What has he saved to send to the families and the people who need it most? So the whole idea of these panagas is to give them some kind of a relief, and our business is to root this into the state business. If the government and the state can give subsidies to the rich people like you and I, you know, subsidies given to fly to Gilgit. The poor people cannot afford the ticket, so we are going holiday makers. I go 4 times. That was meant for people who live there. वो नेटको में ही जाएंगे. वही हाल है फकीरों के. Because he cannot pay even 800 rupees or 1000, so he'll go it. The subsidies are given, the state sponsors the rich and powerful, never the weak and vulnerable. So that's why this program is, in some sense, a good one, because it's catering to one of that things. And this Ramadan, you said, is another area when you outpouring of spontaneous, philanthropic work. Everybody gives their gifts. So this could be a Ramzan to remember, because even in these panagas, which are right now around 75 or something, by Ramzan we will have almost 200 panagas up and about, and there will be about 30 lakh people in that month who will be getting seher and iftar in a very respectable, reasonable manner. So when the giving is about restoring the human dignity, then I think anybody will contribute. And if we can also flag the information and transparency about the causes that need attention, especially in the silent emergency, the diaspora is our biggest hope. And thank you very much for the study. And if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you for your comments and insights about report and about your work you're doing. I'll now request panelists to please rise here for the group photo.